Hello, welcome to Fig Tree Christian. I'm Pastor Melissa, and I am so glad that you are here today. Today, I am going to share something special with you. I have already written Cal's Inferno, but I went ahead and wrote the next to last chapter of Cal's Paradise for y'all so that you know where this is going and you have a pretty good idea that I am not just writing death and destruction and all things horrible because it's hell, that I'm going to go through hell, purgatory, and heaven, just to let you know how this was beforehand. The story goes Cal is an antique shop owner and he is possessed by his grandfather who does not want to move on, and a guide comes to exorcise him. It goes horribly wrong and accidentally takes Cal to the in-between or limbo, and she has been tasked to walk Cal through hell and purgatory to get him to the gates of heaven to meet God. This is the chapter where God sits Cal down and they have their grand speech. And my brain, since it's not written yet, is thinking that it's in the cosmos, because Dante writes that God walks him through the cosmos. That's heaven. Heaven is literally up there. So through the different solar system parts. So this is in the universe. You are more than welcome to have something else on, to put in headphones and walk around. You don't need to see me to hear this. It's 5 pages, and I think it's going to take around 20 minutes to read. But hopefully, like I said, you will get that I write happy endings, even though this first part is not that happy. There's a lot of joy and God's love in it, but it's not happy. So let's begin. God sat with Cal on the bridge, looking out at the cosmos. She placed her chin on the railing, wistfully gazing at the nebulas and galaxies before her. An ocean of emotion ran through her: joy, sadness, pride, heartbrokenness. It was like she was looking at it all and could see it all and was reacting to it all at once. While it had been mesmerizing to stare at the cosmos, Cal now found it impossible not to look at God. She smiled and turned her attention to him. He suddenly felt seen, but not in a bad way. Like everything about him was known, and yet he was still loved. I'm going to tell you a story. Is that okay? You can tell me anything right now, and I'll listen, Cal answered. God narrowed her eyes for a moment, an action that felt to Cal like she was about to create something and was looking to Cal for the ingredients. Then she nodded an approving nod and began. In the beginning, the world was a formless void. Even that definition is too defined. It was neither nothing nor everything, existing and not existing all at once. She smiled to herself. And even that defines it too much. I didn't want that. I wanted something. So I began to order it. Let there be light, I said. But something happened. By naming the light, it also named the darkness. This also revealed something else. I had made the beginning. And in naming the beginning, I could see the end. Worry filled her eyes, and she shook her head. Such a difficult start, the birthing pangs I felt, bringing an existence into being. Knowing beginnings in light brought endings in darkness, I couldn't stand for it. I want what I had said to be the most important part. So I continued. I said, beginnings and light were good. Suddenly, endings in darkness were bad. Now existence had things that were good and bad. With that realization, I exploded it all, and boom! Dramatically, God clapped her hands. The light separated into burning balls, and from those fiery balls of light, it spit out galaxies and solar systems. Now the space had a companion, mass. I liked space. I liked mass. They were both good. Then I just created. I wanted to see what happened when you mixed creations, put a little of what you call hydrogen with that oxygen. There was water. Something else happened when I mixed. Creating mixes also created taking apart. Honestly, I didn't like that everything I was doing was bringing something else with it. I could have just wiped it clean there and started over. The tapestry hadn't been knitted so far that I would have missed what was taken away. That was, is, and always will be the consequence, Cal. The start over means to start over. It's like destroying a woven blanket. You can't just take the pieces you don't want out. It unravels and nothing remains. All of it goes, or all of it stays. She waited to let those words sink in. But Cal was barely hanging on to begin with. This was the story of the cosmos, and it was beautiful and scary all at the same time. I saw it all, and I wanted more. I mixed and matched until a combination created something spectacular. Life. Only you know what came with life, don't you, Cal? Death, he softly said. Yes, death, God repeated. I thought of ending life right then. But I loved life. Like loved. I couldn't destroy it no matter how much I didn't like death. So I kept creating life. Amoebas, bacteria, moss, ferns, mushrooms, grass, trees, tiny creatures that swam in the ocean or crawled on the ground, gigantic creatures that roam the earth and the seas. All that life, she exclaimed, created something all on its own without my help. Relationship. Oh, that was good. That was so very good. Then came humans. You all are at the end of this story, but you take up so much space. She breathed a deep sigh and put her chin back on the bridge. Then she put her hand out like she was going to grab something and pulled her hand back, pulling them, bridge and all, across the cosmos to look at the earth close up. Cal felt a little pull with the move and squeezed his hand to the rail. Earth was stunning from this distance. The oceans and clouds gave a marbled effect. The land seemed so calm from such a distance. Cal couldn't help but emoting a little as he looked at it. Oh, she smirked, and then continued while looking at the earth. I didn't want any of you to know what creation did. that with light comes darkness, and with beginnings comes ends. With life comes death. I wanted to protect you. I wanted to keep you safe. I decided you didn't need the knowledge of it all. Only you're a very inquisitive species, seeking out answers to things no one even thought to ask. A tree was your undoing. A human looked at it as a fruit fell to the ground. She watched as a mouse ran up and began to nibble at it. Then a snake came and ate the mouse. For the very first time, a human looked at the nibbled fruit, and the engorged snake and wanted the mouse to return. The person picked up the fruit, inspected the tiny bite marks, and realized something. The bite marks were there, and nothing could undo them. That's when the first human realized time. In realizing time, she thought how the mouse being there in front of her and moving around only a few minutes before was good. She suddenly knew goodness. Then she wanted the mouse back. So at first, she tried to undo what put the mouse there to begin with. She attempted to re-stick the fruit back to the tree. She then realized things had happened that couldn't allow that to be. She would have to get the tiny pieces back on the fruit, and those were in the stomach of a mouse who was in the stomach of a snake. That's how she realized she was alive and thought being alive was good. God sadly shook her head as a tear fell down her cheek. This creation means if you learn one, you know the other. The woman with her mouse and snake fell into a thought spiral as she realized the mouse was gone and not coming back. This made her think of her companion's existence and wondered if he'd be gone one day too. Then she thought of herself. She didn't have words for it, but she realized not being alive was bad. I made life good, and therefore made death bad. There was a deep sadness on God's face that held Cal from going into his own thought spiral. God turned her head to him. Total honesty. I considered doing it then. Just completely restarting. In that moment, it felt like the bad had somehow outweighed the good. She shook her head. I didn't want them to hurt, but I wanted them to exist. It was in them having knowledge of good and evil. I allowed pain and suffering instead of destroying it all. Then humanity surprised me. Grabbing the railing, God leaned back and swung forward. It was a very childlike movement. And finally, after swinging back and forth a few times, she pulled forward one last time, folding her arms over the railing and looking again at Cal. You all were able to create. You stood out at night and looked up at the stars. Out there, you named darkness good. For in the darkness, it was easier to see the light. It was good because darkness helped you sleep. Darkness brought you rest. I was so happy for all of you, that you could give goodness to the dark. She sighed again, a sigh that held the weight of the universe. Of course, that meant the light could be bad. It could keep fungus from growing. It could burn and bleach. At that point, it was fine. They were making their own mixes, redeeming what I named bad and clarifying what I named good. They began to create their own creations. They too saw some of it was good and some of it was bad. It was the bad that concerned me. Some beginnings were now bad, and some endings were now good. It was amazing and horrific at the same time. This she said as she shook her head. It's like this. A parent builds a playroom for her children. She puts all her time and energy to make it just right. Some of her children take care of the toys she made, making sure their play doesn't hurt the toys for future children. Some children play hard and accidentally hurt what the parent spent so much time building. Then there's the ones that purposefully break and destroy for whatever reason. Now, the parent could just kick them all out and destroy it all. How fair is that? To stop it all because some have chosen to be selfish and mean. That wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to punish everyone because of the choices of the few. I did think, what if I stopped the bad actions before they happened? Make the people do what was right instead of what was wrong. That didn't work. You take away free will and you take away the person. I might as well have been playing with toys instead of relating to souls. Anyway, you know what happens when I step in and make the person do something that they were not planning on doing? Cal shook his head. They do it later anyways. Humans, who were created from a chaos that had so little meaning it was indescribable, are drawn back to that very same chaos. You are all Leviathan, and I love you. Leviathan was a word Cal had heard before, but never took the time to know why. A monster was what he knew. And after all that he had seen, he could believe it. Humans were monsters. Some were harmless and maybe even helpful, like a furry puppet on a morning kids show. Others were terrifying. Their teeth might not literally be sharp, but they absolutely had a bite. Cal wondered, why redeem us at all? Why love us? God, looking at Cal with a gaze that both disarmed and encouraged him, pierced her lips for a moment. I see the beginning, middle, and end of all things. It doesn't mean I have to accept what I see. I saw you, all of you, and I didn't accept what I saw. Now your ending has changed. Well, let me take that back. Your endings have changed. You have free will, and free will means you have potential stories with potential middles and ends you can choose. I took potential that was taken away from you and gave it back. I do that because it would be selfish not to. It would be selfish to not try to fix what I created broken. Like I said before, if I took out the horror, it would unravel the joy. If I plucked out the pain, it would dismantle the ecstasy. I can only give the opportunity for you to make those choices on your own. I'm always there, but not always seen. I'm always speaking, but not always heard. Because of this journey, you now know me with all of your senses, and now it will be easier for you to recognize me in the world. Walk us towards a beautiful creation and not an indescribable chaos. Turning his focus on the bridge, he zeroed in on the wood grain of the railing that was right in front of him, instead of looking at God. Returning potential sounded grandiose, but he knew the potential being returned to him was not the potential he lost. He learned that in hell. It was like the middle-aged buyers in the antique shop looking for their lost toys. He wasn't selling them something they had previously owned. The toy's story belonged to someone else, and now they were co-opting it as their own, making it something that it wasn't. Would that be how he'd see his future? Pretending to be something it wasn't? God began answering like Cal had wondered it all out loud. My child, the truth is, you absolutely can't live into this new potential like it was the old one. It is not like the toys at all. It's a calling. Callings can only be accepted as something new. If you begin to treat it like something that has already passed, it would die before it had a chance to be born. Now, you can choose that path. You can choose to try to live in what has already died. Many do. But that choice isn't life, and it's not death. You would spend your time undead, neither living nor dying. Instead, I'm telling you to take my calling and create something with it. You name what is good and find out how that makes something bad. Then try to redeem what you realize is bad. Listen to the potential of others and see how it blends and mixes with your own. Discover the beauty in your own light and darkness. Start something in spite of the ending, because the beginning and middle are worth it. Cal felt a hand on his chin as God gently turned his gaze back to her. You spent hell allowing what you could never be again to die. Some of those things needed to die, and some of those things are regrettably gone. You came to terms with their demise, and it was good. You spent purgatory giving a funeral to your old self. It was sad and necessary. It too was good. While I could have had this exact conversation with you without that journey, it is that journey that gives this conversation meaning and purpose. Don't go finding your old toys with their old memories that can't live in your now. Go build your own future with their own memories. I see your future like fractals of light coming from you. And you have but to pick one of those paths and begin your journey. I see love and future relationships in all different directions. new chances to do new things, new mountains to climb with new people you don't even know yet. Isn't that exciting? Still holding his chin, Cal nodded yes. Then go and create your world. Your story begins now. Your future has yet to be. That's it. I hope you enjoy. I hope you listen. And I hope you check in. I have left links to both the YouTube page as each chapter goes live. I'm about 2/3 of the way done putting that on YouTube and setting a release date. And I also have my Patreon. So I left that link there too. I would love for you to become a patron because I am also going to end up sharing why I chose the things I did. There's a lot of Genesis and Job in this chapter, and I am excited about sharing all those details for why I did what I did. But as always, I hope that you can find God's peace, the action kind of peace, the kind that seeks peace and not just comfort. So, as always, go in peace.